A very big welcome to our filmmakers here, Tanuja Chandra, the director of the movie, and Anupama Mandloi, the producer of the movie. And tell us, I mean, you know, every time we watch this movie, it's just a perpetual smile. What happens when you all watch it after making it?
Anupama?
This is for both of
you.
you.
We smile too. It's just something that brings, you know, such a feeling of warmth and nostalgia. And I've been reading all the comments, and that's really for every screening that we've had so far. The reception has been so warm, and it's something about, you know, Aunty Sudha and Aunty Radha, the two of them, who sort of just bring that smile to you. It's with their bickering and their banter and all of that. So yeah, Tanuja.
Yeah, for me, it's of course very personal, but I'm able to sort of just watch it as a film and be entertained by it and be moved by it. And always, each time, it just surprises me how much we have to learn from people who have lived for these many decades on this earth, you know. So I just find that old people have so much to contribute to our lives and make our lives much more valuable than we give them credit for. So that to me is, I feel fortunate to have been able to make this movie for that reason.
The very first question that comes as a viewer to any of our minds, in fact, the whole team wanted to know, the entire Silver Talkies team, what made you decide to make this film? You know, you went, visited them after such a long time. You tell in the movie, that, I mean, you've read about in your interviews also that this was a much awaited visit. So what was it about this visit, and how did you decide to take this up as a subject, Tanuja?
You know, I had always found these two sisters to be extremely hilarious. You know, they were very funny always, and I'd found this relationship to be cinema worthy actually for most of my life, and I'd been very close to them. They're very, especially Choti Bua was extremely affectionate and loving to me. So I had always wanted to do it. I just sort of, you know, was wondering when I'll do it, when will I have time. I actually, you know, we become so busy that we're not able to find time to visit our relatives. And my parents used to go there every year, and they used to keep telling me how much fun it is in the village to be with these two. And then when they also told me about the caretakers, you know, which is really their family, that's when to me it became like a proper story worthy of a film. Of course, I was still looking for a producer, and documentary, as you know, in India is not something that is very sought after. And actually really should be, because these are stories that we must tell, and all of India is filled with these kind of stories, you know. So of course, when, you know, I approached Anupama actually to help her and asking her to help me find a producer, and she ended up saying that she would produce it, which was honestly the best thing to happen to it. So from then we just gathered a team that loved the subject. And finally, I told my buas that I'll be coming, and they were very pleasantly surprised, because they'd been asking me, as you said, every year, and I used to just be too full of my own life, you know, to visit them. And I'm so happy that we did, because it's just a blessing.
No, that's very true. In fact, so many of us keep putting off these visits to people who have been part of our childhoods, right?
Yes.
I want to come to Anupama after this about, you know, what made her decide to produce this. But I want to quickly ask you, Tanuja, when you're growing up and you said you've been close to them, you've been a recipient of much love from them. So how was it? What kind of, what kind of interactions would you have with them? And tell me a bit about that relationship that you've had.
You know, in our family, they're mostly filled with really funny people. So these two, of course, they're my buas. I also had on my mother's side my mausis that I was really close to. So with these two, there was this constant kind of need to also talk about themselves, which I found really interesting. You know, that they would tell about their own lives to me, and they would talk about their relationships. with their children, with their spouses, with everybody. And so, you know, that ability, as well as that desire to share about their own lives with me, possibly also fed into this, you know. And I used to just love to spend time with them because they were so full of stories, you know. And as young children, we love to listen to stories, but especially that, you know, our older relatives tell us. So they would be full of stories, you know, till much later, till much more, so recently as when we shot the film. They just are full of stories to tell. But the thing that got added to this beautifully was that two sisters decide to live with each other once they are, you know, sort of rid of all their responsibilities, and retire to a kind of a retiring home, which is their own home, and where they can completely be themselves. You know, they're answerable to no one except themselves, you know. And so they fight when they feel like, they get up when they feel like, they sleep when they feel like, they eat what they feel like. So it's really the kind of retirement that is an ideal, actually, you know. A lot of it we discovered while shooting, you know. It just came to life because of them. And I'm reading in the comments that people say that, you know, very naturally acted. Actually, that's the beautiful part. There's no acting in it at all, you know. They're just being themselves. They don't care where the camera is. They don't care what they look like. It's such a liberation, you know, from all the pressures that life puts on us. So
they
yeah.
were, you know, so sorry, you're saying something. So sorry.
No, continue.
So they were absolutely fine when you said that when you were shooting them, they had no, you know, no camera consciousness, anything.
Not at all, not in the slightest. And they wondered why we would want to bother making a film. They were like, yeah, what are we gonna, you know, what's it gonna be about? Though they were really excited about it, but you know, they were more, like I said, that once a person becomes this aged, there's nobody left to impress anymore, actually, you know. So honestly, the thing that I would tell actors now is this, that, you know, just completely forget what you look like, what you appear like, you know, what you seem like. Just be in a fictional film. Of course, it's a character, so just be that, because we're all like, how's my hair looking, how's my face looking, how's, you know, how am I sitting, and you know, which they don't care.
Their aunties are a lesson for all future actors.
Yes,
so
yes.
So Anupama, how did you know, why did you decide to produce this? What was it that drew you in?
Honestly, I think there were just two things. One was that I've known Tanuja for years now. We used to work together at Plus Channel. So there's a little faith that you have, you know, that this is somebody I trust. I've seen her work. So I know it'll be good. I mean, that's basic parameter will be met. The second thing was that, I don't know, at that point in time, it just felt like the right thing to do. It was a gut instinct on my part, because if you look at the film, it's not the kind of film that would get picked up by a mass platform, or, you know, that people would say, it's not easily marketable because it doesn't have celebrity faces. It doesn't have any of those trappings. But I'm so glad that we went ahead, and I went ahead and said, let me produce this, because it has turned out to be something that I'll value for the rest of my life, you know, that I've been part of something that is so beautiful, and that whenever we have a screening, it enriches people in very different ways, and it connects with people in very different ways. So, I mean, what I did on impulse and taking a punt on just my gut feeling, I guess has been the best thing I did for a long time. So,
you know, we are definitely not, you know, we don't understand about film marketing, but I think the entire Silver Talkies team and many people in the audience must be wondering, why is this not marketable? It has everything, right? It has drama,
absolutely,
comedy, everything.
Absolutely.
So it couldn't help but share that.
Yeah. I know. I mean, that's the thing, is that, you know, today we are just so focused on how commercial we can make something, and whether it is sort of led by celebrity faces, and whether it's a big budget production. But people don't understand that sometimes you don't need so much money to make something that is meaningful. And that if they were to put this on a platform, I think it is something that would be watched and appreciated by lots and lots of people. So right now, of course, it is there on Book My Show stream, and it's there on, it's available in Australia, it's available in the US, but these are all independent sort of streaming platforms that work for independent filmmakers. So the good thing is that there are avenues present to get the film out to people. So we are doing whatever we can.
I just saw a comment that said this should be on Netflix. And what about Amazon? I agree.
It should, absolutely. Please, if put this out on social media if you can, because
it really should be. It really should be, right? So, one question that obviously comes to everyone is that this film is a mix of so many lessons. You learn about independence, this whole thing Tanuja was talking about. I mean, they don't care, they're living their life, and about living a spirited life, the way you want to, no matter what ailments come, whether you're in a walker. So it talks about that. It talks about companionship between siblings, the bond they have with each other, the life that they're leading as they grow older. So what were there some, did you want to showcase some of these thoughts very consciously? What did you really want to showcase when you started to make it? Tanuja, you want to answer?
Yes. Well, often one falls into the trap of looking at old age as something sad. And, there was a point in time when I was like, we must discuss, the autumn of your life and death and things like that. But it just so happened that these women ended up talking about death also in a funny way. The way she said that one day I just want to drop dead suddenly from a heart attack. It is not something which one laughs at, and yet it made me laugh. And so what ended up happening was that when you say spirited, it comes from the idea that I had, that that it's important to also talk about the anguish of old age and the dark side of old age and all that. It didn't come naturally to these women, despite the fact that they've had extreme, difficulties in their lives, and they've had anguish in their lives and pain and sorrow. But it's not something they choose to dwell on, and this is not conscious. This is something that is very natural to them, So I think that I started with a kind of an idea, and then as one went along, we would just be in their home the whole day, and we would be with them even when they were sleeping. We used to just take a small break and then go right back to shooting. A lot of it came along even from the way they sort of showed their lives to be. For example, like she wanted to buy saris, so she would for her to actually step out of the home and go buy some clothes for all of us also, actually. She says, I need to get some gifts for you people. So she stepped into this rickshaw and she went to the market, and then she shops. It was hilarious for me to see that she shopped straight from there. She doesn't get off the rickshaw. I was like, this is great. She was pointing out to stuff. So it, as all documentaries, it actually comes very naturally from their own lives, without me as a filmmaker trying to impose my views. And therefore, there is a great learning for me as well, which then finally the editor, who had, like 20 hours of footage, and how he just kind of picked and chose the parts that were sparkling, and where they would both be like, so the whole idea of them fighting with each other and all that, I mean, we didn't do anything. It was all just unfolding in front of our eyes, so while the interviews, I kind of, led them, but somehow they found their own, like a river, found their own natural flow,
So they really drove the film in a way.
In a way they did, and they would not think that, they would think that they were just speaking about their lives, but how enigmatic it is, and how beautiful it is to listen even to just the simple things about life. That's why I think that there's a great lesson to be learned. They're not trying to teach us a lesson, first of all, they're just living their lives and saying that this is what we think we did the best we could, and we don't care how you judge us, we hope you'll judge us well. So it's that kind of humility, is beautiful to behold, actually.
That's very true. So if you were
Yeah.
to, both of you, were to think of the lessons that, you'd have got from this, what would some of those lessons be, or a viewer can get? This is for both of you. I want both of you to tell us. What would those lessons
Sure.
be?
Anupama?
So, Reshmi, you've already actually mentioned most of the lessons, but there is one big lesson, and I find that a lot of people sort of go back with this after watching the film, is that towards the fag end of your life, or actually at any point in your life, community is so important. To be surrounded by people who you can call your own, who allow you to be yourself, who are not judging you at any point in time, but who embrace you and you're able to embrace them with complete openness and affection. I think that's what everybody wants, and to be able to surround yourself, and it doesn't have to be your family. Like today, there are so many single people around, and the fact is that you can still build a community around yourself, and it doesn't have to be a typical family, right? I mean, family is what people you build and create around yourself. So that was, I think, one really, really big takeaway from here. And the other is independence. I mean, for me, that was something that resonated with me completely, because to be independent, to have that lust for life, that regardless of what stops you, life doesn't stop, and so for you to embrace it and to flow with it is really the most important thing for you to get the maximum out of it. So I think for me, those were the two big lessons. But Tanuja.
I think community is actually, she put her finger on absolutely the crux of the whole matter, which is that, we need people in our lives. We should have people in our lives, and they need not be blood relationships. We can be, just by the fact that we care for each other is strong enough to create a bond. And so these caretakers love to take care of them, and they also take care of the caretakers. And of course, it doesn't mean that the caretakers don't behind their back say that, oh, she just shouts too much, and oh, she's so bad, she's so badly behaved. It's all fine, but they love them, so it's just, it is a place which is actually a symbol of what a perfect world would be like, where we could all get along despite our flaws, and not hide our flaws, and we could all look after each other, so I think that community is the right thing, especially in the world as it is today, just falling apart. All the more important to talk about the virtues of getting along and caring for each other.
That's very true. In fact, that's something we try to do on Silver Talkies. We are a virtual community, but that's very true. That support you get and that whole sense of community, that you're not alone.
Yes.
Brought about really, really well. Tell us a little bit more about the community around them. How did the, your interaction with them go? Did they, I mean, it must have been quite a new thing for most of them to have a film being made, right? Around their life, to speak. So how is it?
Actually, the most of them did not even, I mean, they were quite taken aback that I wanted them to be a part of it, because, and of course the film would be incomplete without them. It is about not just the two sisters, but about this extended family, so they were shy. They were, but then, once I started speaking to them, they opened up real fast. And as I think, the thing is that in small town and in rural culture, people are simpler. There is a simplicity of attitude and about life. There isn't the complexities that we sort of deal with in urban life, and so they were able to open up, and I like the fact that even the youngest one, that cook, she's hardly in her 20s. She's like, that yeah, she never likes my cooking. She's never. That's because Sudha Bua, by the way, was an amazing cook in her youth. That was another thing I forgot to mention. She was, oh my God, she used to make impeccable food. And so now, like, she would tell this cook that this is bad and this is bad. So the cook was like, but the cook was like, so when she goes on and on and on, I just put on music, play the music really loudly. So you would think that that's really rude of her to do. But I just think that I saw so much cuteness and affection in that.
There was affection in that.
Yeah,
The way she did it. Yeah.
So it was, to me, as important to have these two sisters who are the protagonists, and to the surrounding caretakers, which are equally protagonists actually in the film. And I remember that after we left, my bua called me and said that they're missing you guys so much. They're like, we've had so much fun. We've never met people who are so warm and affectionate, and so they were taken aback to have a film made about them. They don't consider themselves as lesson giving as we do, actually. So that's also something that struck me, that people don't realize their value and their worth.
Yes, that's very true, actually. This whole mortality part that is there in the movie and the way it's dealt with, like you said, you saw humor in it, the way it was said. When you were making it, was there any conscious decision to sort of address mortality? How did you decide to deal with it? Again, for both of you, for Tanuja and Anupama, both of you.
Anupama, go ahead.
I really don't think I played any role in deciding whether they should, what we should address in terms of content. But I was just glad that it was addressed, because it's like the white elephant in the room, that when you have, when it's a story about two people in that age group, mortality is inevitable, and it's something that, instead of skirting around, if it's addressed and the way it was done, I mean, that's what I love about the film, is that there is humor in everything, and life is not taken so seriously, which I think all of us can learn from. So that was it for me.
Yeah, I had always intended, but like I said, that mine was a more serious approach, which got turned around when it was actually, it came down to me talking to them, because that's just not how they look at it. They do not consider it a tragedy, despite the fact that the younger ones had a pretty tragic life. But to them, that's the inevitable end, and it's bound to happen. So they're very practical. Their outlook was practical, realistic, raw, but without it being heavy, because again, because of the attitude of that, this is the natural flow of life. It begins, there's a mid, and it ends someday. There's no escaping that absolute fact. So while I had always intended it, I had intended to be serious about it, but they turned it around and made it easygoing.
The treatment changed. It became the way it is because of their attitude.
Yes.
Superb. Like, really, that, like you said, they don't think they're giving lessons, but we took away lessons.
Yes, absolutely.
Also, if I can just jump in and say, like towards the end of the film, when Tanuja got everyone to, like when she's speaking to them, and then there is laughter, and, it's been edited also in such a manner that it ends on this note of just everybody smiling and laughing. That's what you take away at the end of the day from the film, that this whole community of love that has been created in this, village, isolated, quiet, somewhere in the remote area, but it's just filled with so much affection and love that I think a lot of people carry that away with them as the last, resonating thing.
That's true. So. And she says also during the movie that, coming to the village, I mean, she's leading her best life now. So that was quite, something that stood out. So had parents watched this, Tanuja, and what was their reaction?
Yes. I mean, my mother being the primary person who, in a way, gave me the idea of the film to do it. she was extremely happy when it was happening. She also knows Anupama because we've known her, and we've worked together since when we were starting out. When we first began our careers, we both were working together. So my mother's known her through the years, and so she was extremely happy that this was happening. And then when she saw it, my dad, of course, because he's their brother, he was very seriously, quietly watching, and he was very moved by it because he was very happy to have something that the world will watch, which is a story about his sisters. My mother greatly enjoyed it. She just enjoyed it, and she, of course, called all my relatives and told them that this movie has been made and you must watch it. Even now, whenever there's a screening or wherever it's showing, she makes it a point to tell them all that, बुआओं की film इधर आ रही है, उधर आ रही है, देखना जरूर अगर देखी नहीं है अब तक. So they were very happy.
That's very sweet. Did the aunts get to see it?
Yes. We actually sent it to them in the village because they don't travel. So they their reaction was, yeah, it's good, it's fine. The reaction was like, oh wow, a film on us. Which should actually be expected. It would be the natural reaction from them. My younger Bua did say that. She said that, her favorite line to me at the time was that, you've made us immortal. And I always used to reply to her that, that it's actually they who made us immortal, because, whenever this movie is shown, our names are going to be up there, so who immortalizes who is really the question. And so that was really sweet of her to say.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. And did they know that it sort of traveled to various festivals? It's kind of traveled all over the world. Did they know that?
Yes, it has been going, and it's a gift that honestly keeps on giving, because it just it travels and travels, and we want it to keep traveling actually, and never stop traveling. So that's when she used to every time repeat that line, ki Tanuja, tumne to hame amar kar diya. So I used to be like, nahi bua, it's you, it's them, it's their sparkle. That's the film. We have just taken a camera and we've given it life. That's all. But the sparkle's there. So
absolutely. So as completely non-film people, we would love to know how the creative process of making this film was. If you could briefly tell us, either of you, both of you.
Go ahead, Anupama.
So
I think basically Tanuja would again be the right person to speak about this, but I think what for me the biggest takeaway from this was in terms of, while there was a rough kind of idea about how we would approach this, what was really nice was that while Tanuja was asking questions and taking interviews, the cameras, there were 2 cameras with us, and they were rolling non-stop, 24 hours. They were just recording everything possible. So whether it was the ambience, whether it was the peacocks, whether it was, just the stuff on in the kitchen, it was constantly rolling. So so much footage because of that, the whole process of cutting this film into not being a strict interview-based film, but it became so much more just by virtue of all the material that we had for the editor to sort of play with. So yeah, that was what my thing is on the creative process.
I mean, the thing with the non-fiction is that it's you don't have a proper script.
Yeah.
It's not, there's no bound script. There is a certain way, not vague, pretty decently thought about structure. I mean, I had a structure. I had written stuff down that I wanted to eventually be. It changed from that. It eventually gets, in a way, rewritten when the editor edits. But with non-fiction, it's always there is an element of something that will happen which we did not expect, and as it should be, because that's the most exciting part of nonfiction. So for me also, it was the first time I was doing a documentary actually. And I'm glad it's this, because then with that personal connection, there is a familiarity, and there is a comfort they felt with me as well, so they were, although honestly the entire team, they just adored everybody. So they were just so happy to have them. So yeah, so it's different from fiction. In this particular case, it didn't have all the what actually is also something that makes movies possible, which is a large team, large funding, stars, etc., etc. All those things were not there in this, which also made it much more, in a sense, pleasurable and
Intimate.
and of course intimate, yes, and just really good fun. And it was so it was a beautiful experience outside the camera as well as in front of the camera, for us.
How long was the process from shooting to the entire film being ready? How long did it take?
That was long. I mean, the shooting didn't take very long because, I mean, how much can one go on shooting in their house? So we were there about a week, 10 days, but the edit took really long. And now my editor every time unfailingly tells me again and again that this is the most beautiful work that I personally think I've ever done, and he always repeats this to me. So I know that he's not just saying it. He genuinely feels that. Took him a long time, because for him to feel it and then for him to go through hours and hours of footage and decide what to keep, because really, even in fiction, I think Godard or Fellini or one of the greats said that, it's or maybe Scorsese, that it's as important what you leave out of the frame as what you actually capture in the frame, So editing, there's so much that you leave out. So how do you decide that? So that the post took a long time. My sound person was very instrumental in giving it this kind of, you can hear them so well, so beautifully, and the background score and all that. So yeah, so we actually, there was a lot of love in that as well, as while we were making it, but even in the post, there was a lot of love. And it all, basically, these are people I've worked with in movies, but also they just felt a lot of affection for these old women. They just adored them. So
Thank you so much for that. For both of you, did it, how did it sort of change, or did it bring about some different thoughts in your own view of aging, working on this?
Anupama?
I think it was a different lens for sure. I mean, the thing is that we grow up and we see a lot of films and a lot of shows where old age is seen as something to be dreaded. We are constantly chasing youth, and we are constantly chasing immortality, and we are constantly chasing, or we never acknowledge the fact that when we come on this earth, it is for a limited period of time. And I think what this film personally for me was that, one, old age can be beautiful. It's up to you, how you look at it. And two, make the most of it for as long as you're independent and able to make your life meaningful. I mean, and meaningful doesn't mean by doing something great, but just appreciating everything that life brings to you, because there is so much, and we have a very finite amount of time on earth. Why not make the most of it? So I think just the fact that it can be joyful and that it can be beautiful was what I walked away with, after the film came together. So
I mean, I also think that the whole idea of sisters and extension of sisterhood, which is, your girlfriends, it's just a beautiful thought that, this is how one can have the final years of one's life living like this, with either a real sister or even your girlfriends who are like your sister. The thing also which is very important to me, and I find that this way of living is fast going away, disappearing from our lives, and therefore also it was important that there should be an archive of people like this, people who think like this, people who have lived like this, because it will just be gone. It will not be available as history to anybody then, and I do think that this is important for just about just millions and millions of lives lived in our country. And I'm speaking specifically about our country because there is a certain particular quality of Indian that Indians have. There's a certain vibrant color and also strangeness, oddness, there's so there's an oddness, especially I think North India. So I think that it's important to archive, important to tell stories, important. And I think that whether it's 1 hour long, it can be 10 minutes long, it can be 2 hours long, whatever, record people, make an archive of what life is in these decades, of the ordinary, so-called ordinary people who to my mind are extraordinary.
That's very true. And especially in places that, are not really focused. Otherwise, we have such, social media, urban scenarios. So these are small areas where lives are not so much in focus as it's there. The whole country, which is what both of you talked about. Anupama spoke about it earlier. You just spoke about it. Sisters, girlfriends, you build your community, you build your family. So this is the other aspect which struck, the whole Silver Talkies team when we watched this whole thing about companionship. It's not a, single, it's not a typical couple concept. It's about having that community. It could be anybody, right?
Yes.
So did you want to bring that aspect out, or did it come to you while making the film that, yes, this is an aspect that will stand out? Was there a conscious thought behind it? Because it does
for
come
me
out.
Personally, there was definitely a conscious thought even before we went, because I knew of the situation, because my parents had been visiting them every year, so they used to tell me, and especially about this newspaper reading. This is what my parents used to tell me, that first of all, these newspapers have these really hilarious headlines and articles and everybody, they all read, and the younger one would read it to the older one. So so it was very conscious in my mind that here is it is a family. And to me, this is what as a filmmaker and a storyteller is of extreme importance to me personally, that this sort of world vision of different people living together and depending on each other and taking care of each other, so it was very much a part of the story. It actually became a story for me when I was told by my parents that, this is the situation, that there are 2 of them and there are 6 caretakers.
Also, I think what Tanuja had seen in it was the fact that there was no religious bias in that sense, that, everyone was living together as a community, which is again becoming fraught. But that was the other beautiful thing about the community, is that it was not based on religion, it was just based on humanity,
Yes.
So
that's a very important message also. That's
very
right.
Yes.
It's not in your face, but it's there, that message.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Thank you for that message. So Aunty Sudha, as many many of our audience may not know, passed away. So how we are sorry for your loss, Tanuja. We're obviously very close to your aunts.
Yes.
How has life sort of changed for Aunty Radha after that?
Yeah, and especially if you remember in the film, my Sudha Bua was saying that she's much older than me, so she's bound to go first.
Yeah,
I love the language that she used. So पहले तो वो ही जाएंगी.
90 साल के नहीं, 9 साल बड़ी है.
Yes. So So, of course, and she was doing fine, and then there was a sudden turn of events. She became ill, and then she didn't survive that. So Badi Bua actually moved to her son's house because she didn't want to be there alone. For her to live in that same house without her sister, which she knew someday will happen, but she couldn't really live with that. So she decided to go to Aligarh, where the son who visits her in the film, he lives, and so she lived there for a while. But now she's planning to return to the house in Lehra with her other older son, and see if she can make that work. I'm hoping it will, because this is the place where she belongs. She knows that, and those people are still so eager for her to come back, and they will return right right away. Immediately they'll come back to cook, to clean, to take care of her, to help her in any way possible. So now she's thinking of returning. So it's been almost 2 years since that time. So now she's thinking of returning. She doesn't really talk much about it. She's not the kind who very easily talks about her pain. She'll talk about other things, and she'll make fun. As you can see in the movie, she's very sarcastic, and she'll make fun of everybody. But she doesn't talk very easily about her own sorrow. So she doesn't say much about it. But obviously, I know that living without her basically partner in crime, whom she was so close to and she really deeply loved, she obviously misses her very much. So life actually, as you know, around the world in the last 2 years has just drastically changed. And so it also did for Badi Bua. And so now she's alone now.
It's an inevitable.
Yes.
Yes. So one last question for both of you before we take a few questions from the audience. Tell us about your favorite moments from the film. Anupama, you want to start? What are some of your favorite moments?
Everything, but first is the holy moment. For me, that moment when Aunty Sudha is dancing, it inevitably makes me cry. There is just something so beautiful and spiritual about that moment. So for me, that's really special. Then all the cooking that takes place in the kitchen, makhan ban raha hai, or phir pohe ban rahe hai, or halwa ban raha hai. It was just because we were also at the association, also because we were enjoying all that food that you see in the documentary. We were the ones who were getting to enjoy it at the tables. So lucky you, that. And then the other thing is what Tanuja mentioned earlier about the newspapers. I love that bit, where they're giving out all those crazy newspaper headlines and and she's being so sarcastic and wry, and it's just hilarious. So lots of stuff. And then of course when they speak of mortality, both of them in their own ways.
For me too, it's difficult to pinpoint one special moment, but I also do like just the little bits about like when she says that, when I asked her that, would you say this is the best time of your life, and she says without a doubt, and it was just very, very deeply so life affirming that that you're saying that. Even Badi Bua said that, even Radha Bua says that I'm so grateful to God for everything that I have a great life. It's amazing to think that way. I also did like all the the domestic help. They were just really saucy and funny and full of their specific sort of bold strokes that their character had. So they weren't trying to be too sweet and too loving and too. I mean, they were just like complaining when they had to, and they find nothing wrong with that. So I found that to be also very freeing, that you're living in a home that you love to come. And basically they would just be there morning to night. They used to sleep in the afternoon. They wouldn't leave. They wouldn't go back to their own homes till the night, because they just felt so at home there. That was their real home. I mean, they have their proper homes, where there's husband and children and all that, but they love being with the buas.
That just speaks of the, the bond that was there, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes,
absolutely. So I'll just give me a moment. I'll just look up a few questions that we may not have. Of course, if you can see on the chat, and we can probably, since we are recording this, we can probably send you some of the comments from here. You can
please send us the entire chat. It's lovely to see all these comments. Thank you so much. I mean, we're glad that everyone seems to have enjoyed the films.
Yes, everyone seems to have. So we definitely will. So there's one question from Mr. Burman, Dr. Burman. You have spoken a bit about you've spoken about the creative journey, Tanuja and Anupama, but he's asked, was a script prepared or was it shot in the moment? Would you like to answer that?
So a bit of both. I definitely did have a script in mind. I wrote it, not just in mind. But like I said, it changed a lot once we got there. It became, it sort of assumed a life of its own with them leading us, with the buas and all the other people, the domestic help leading us, and the sequence that Anupama mentioned of the holy thing and all that, that very much we were at the right time over there, when all these old ladies would come visit, and then they would sing with the dholak and dance. With even when Sudha, the younger one, remarked later on that oh, she's quite large, but she dances really well. So yeah, it was both.
It was a bit of both. Okay,
yes.
Thank you. So
more the unscripted part, as always in documentary tends to be.
Thank you for that. So Anuja has asked, how did they cope through the COVID lockdown, since they don't seem to be very technically connected?
Yeah, so they both, it was difficult for them, but in the village, they were also less afflicted because these two don't leave home as such. Only the younger one would go out once in a while because she is somebody who's always loved socializing and all that. But they stayed at home mostly, so they didn't get sick from it. They didn't. None of all these people had COVID. But almost 2 years ago is when Sudha Bua passed away, but from non-COVID related illness.
Okay.
So yeah.
So that's how and then you've already told us how life has unfolded for Radha Bua.
Yes, and then Radha Bua has not gone back since then.
Yes, thank you for that. So there is a question from Sunita on what's your next, that's addressed to Tanuja.
Oh, well, I last year was very difficult because I had to split my production. So I've worked on a series for Amazon, which is shot last year. So at this point, the editing is going on.
So Geeta wants to know, Geeta Naresh, is there any way we can help promote this?
Yes, please. Anupama will tell them how. Please do.
Anupama, would you like to tell them how?
Please. Just share it with all your family, friends, social media, wherever you can. The trailer is available on YouTube. It's available to anyone and everyone. There is a 3-minute trailer. There's a 1-minute trailer. So you can share that with people and just spread the good word. And it's also available on Book My Show stream in India. So anybody but that you have to pay for it and watch it. And I think it's 89 rupees per ticket. And it's also available in Australia on a platform. And yeah, that's where it is right now. And it's also going to appear on Tasveer TV from, I think, next month. So that will be available worldwide other than India. So, but please spread the good word. I mean, I think that's all we can ask for, is that the more people hear about it, talk about it, want to see it, maybe, just seeing the demand for it, one of the platforms will pick it up.
Yeah, it definitely does deserve to be on a mainstream platform.
Yeah,
you know,
it does. Yeah.
So the intention is to have it appear there, and of course, like Anupama said, if there is a certain word of mouth that travels about it, then they will be more interested in having it, and I'm very sure that that people of all ages, I know because my own niece and nephew, very young people, have watched it and been entertained like anything. You think that they find it boring. They don't. They enjoy listening to these people. So
in fact, I have to share with you, sorry Tanuja, sorry.
Yeah.
I have to share with you that we did a very small screening, and I got so a couple of my friends got their teams to come and watch it. And these are all young ADs, who would normally never opt for a documentary around two old ladies. But because their boss was telling them to come and watch it, they came and watched it. And one of them sat and sobbed through almost the entire film. And the others couldn't stop talking about it. I mean, all of them identified it with it made them nostalgic. They remembered their grandparents. It became such an emotional journey. We've had a couple of people who've just dropped everything and run home to be with their parents or grandparents, just spend a little time with them. This film has had that kind of an effect on the youngsters who we've shared it with. So we know the power that this film has. And I'm actually so confident that it's only a matter of time. It may not happen now, it may happen 5 years from now, but this film, will travel, and it will become one of the most talked about things. I'm just so confident about it because it has captured a time in life, as Tanuja also mentioned, that is fast disappearing, and these are the only ways that we can sort of look back on it. So
yeah, and you've reminded me of a message I remember getting from somebody who was in her late 20s, who after watching the film immediately contacted her grandmother and also visited her, soon after which she passed away. And so she was just like, thank goodness I just did that. I did that. I went and I had the opportunity to say bye, because that's the thing. We don't get the chance to say bye, and so I think that the fact that everybody says that, this reminded me of my own bua and of my own chachi and of my own dadi and nani, that is its key strength,
Yeah, it's that connect people make with somebody in their own life, right?
Yes.
Keeps it going.
Yes.
Yeah. That's really, that's really wonderful. That's probably the connect we have all made with this movie.
Yes.
So Girish has asked, for how many years were both aunts living together?
I think we shot it 3 years ago, right?
2018.
Yeah.
2018.
So they were already living together before that, for maybe, I would say it's 10 years.
5,
maybe.
6, 10 years.
Maybe. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe Anupama's right. Maybe between 5 and 10 years they were living together, in the sense that as soon as both of them, the older one's husband passed away, which was actually quite a long time back, and they kind of did what they call marammat of this house decently enough, then they both moved, Then they had that garden where they wanted to eventually have a fountain, and they grew all the vegetables that they were eating right there in front of them. Yeah. So they developed it. So I would say maybe 7-8 years for sure.
Okay, that's a fairly long time.
Yeah.
So yes, we're sure Aunty Radha misses Aunty Sudha a lot.
Yeah.
So there is a question from Mr. Arun Bhatia, who's one of our members, who's in his mid-80s himself. He wants to know, because you mentioned the editing process, that it was long. He wants to know how much time, and was the editor given full authority? Was any footage wasted? Then what is being shown?
Wasted though. Well, 20 hours ki film though, then we should have made a series, Anupama. So yes, there was a lot of footage that's not used, which is just fine. That's what happens in documentary. But yes, it took long. It took over 6 months, if I remember correctly. And he was given full authority. He's the kind of editor who, in any case, assumes full authority. But which is why he just did it with deep deep felt affection. He really loved the film. So yeah, he did take a long time. I think
He
at
actually
least
took 9 months.
Okay, 9 months.
9 months. And I remember
And he still
in between, I used to
apologizes
ask
for it.
Tanuja, what is happening? Like, when are we going to get? And the minute I saw the film, I was like, my God, it has been worth all that time, because he did it with so much love. Every frame that he sort of stitched together is just done with a lot of thought, and it shows. So yeah.
Yes, it absolutely does. So there have been a few questions that have come to us about the place where they live. So could you describe it a little bit before we...
Yeah, so it's this village called Lehra. Of course, I had not known about it before they moved to Lehra. I quite like the name. It's a very pretty name. It's near Vrindavan, and it's near very close to Hathras. Yes, very close to Hathras. So we actually were staying in a hotel in Hathras, in the sense that they asked us to stay in their home, but 10 of us couldn't stay in their home. So we were living in a hotel in Hathras, and we used to early morning drive to Lehra. So it's UP, Uttar Pradesh, but not far from Delhi.
Okay. Thank
not
you.
Very far, 4 hours.
3-4 hours.
Sorry, we can't take any more questions right now, as we have reached the end of the event. But thank you all for attending. And before we go, Tanuja and Anupama, is there something, any thing that you would want to share about your entire experience of making this movie, about the aunts, anything that you would like to leave all of us with?
Anupama, first.
What can I say? It was a week of absolute delight in this, like I said, it's this bungalow. And our family home is also something like this, it's a huge bungalow, and they're just memories of some really, really great times. But here, to go into this place and, actually eat the food that, you go back into time, literally. It's time travel that happens. And so for those 6-7 days that we were there, it was just very happy, peaceful, filled with laughter, just watching, these 2 aunts and their domestic help pottering around. And it's day to day. It's not like there's anything happening, and yet the day is busy and full. So yeah, we lived that time. So it was beautiful.
It's true. They were really, it was oddly enough, really busy and buzzing. But to me, what's special though is that the beautiful fact that the film, it travels and travels and travels and travels, and it's just something that is going on and on. And it just gives me such utter satisfaction that that's happening. And I feel incredibly lucky to have been able to, first of all, of course, have Anupama to produce it. Otherwise it wouldn't have been possible. And to then assemble a team that we actually got to make this. I feel very lucky that we got to make it. If it was a year or two later, it would have been too late. It wouldn't have been made then, and so, you might say that, oh, so what's the big loss? In the big picture, maybe there's no loss. And yet, what a great loss not to have it, right? So it thrills me that Silver Talkies would like to show it, and that 100 people turn up to watch it, and then they would like to speak about it to other people. And that's really the earning of the film. That's the thing. It should be watched, and that makes me very happy.
So aptly put. Absolutely right. Yeah.
It's that connection that people take away from the movie. Much. And thank you,
Thank
everyone
you.
who joined today, who watched the movie with us. Thank you for your lovely comments. We'll send these to you. Just give us a day, maybe. We'll send this to the 2 of you. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Tanuja.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for